I'm Jason.
I'm Diggs.
I make software, music, and podcasts.
I connect people, personally and professionally, and I like talking with Jason.
This is the Candy Factory 5x5 podcast.
5 conversations.
5 random topics.
5 minutes each.
When we hear this sound,
we move on to the next topic. Next.
On every episode, we invite a very special guest to join us. And our special guest on today's episode of 5x5, Rasheed Hamid. Rasheed, welcome to the program. It's so good to have you.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you both for having me.
Tell me about yourself.
Oh, let's see. Originally from Washington, D.C., born and raised. Not too many people can claim that these days. But after 25 years in the hospitality industry, I made my way here to Lancaster very haphazardly. Fell in love, got married, and now it's home.
That's it.
Yeah.
And you found the Candy Factory.
And I found the Candy Factory, which I'm extremely grateful for.
We're grateful to have you, for sure.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm here working with you guys on a regular basis and running Extra Hands Virtual Assistants, which is a staffing recruiting agency. Now that we're in the age of the Great Resignation.
Right.
And it's... I'm spending more time here than I thought I would be, I'll tell you that.
Are there in your experience, are there a lot of people just kind of doing the reshuffle thing that they're talking about? Like, are you seeing it?
The numbers are staggering.
Is that right?
Staggering. I'm a research junkie, so I get tons of like emails from all kind of random outlets.
Yeah.
But like 43% of African-American women specifically, I saw this stat today, 43% of African-American women in the corporate industry are either resigning or interested in resigning this year. And people aren't resigning for other jobs. They're resigning to start something.
Is that right?
Wow.
The first time that we've seen numbers like this in 20 years since the government has been keeping data on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that I'm learning, too, and hearing these reports about it's not necessarily that people are just going to go back into this workforce.
Yeah.
It's really changing, and it's going to look a lot different.
It is.
In the weeks to come.
Very exciting.
Grateful to have you here as a member of the Candy Factory. Do we make candy? Of course we don't make candy.
Sorry.
The Candy Factory is a co-working and social club located in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. You can check out coworkinginlancaster.com. See all the details there, all of our membership options, schedule a tour, come down and hang out with us for a day. It's an awesome place, an awesome resource. The thing about it is the connections you make here, and that it's hard to explain it. I'm trying to explain it to you folks, you great folks who are what. It's about the connections. It's not just a place to work. It's about the people you meet. It's about all the opportunities that present themselves. You don't even know they're there.
That's true.
And the podcast you make.
I can testify to that. It's very true.
The podcast. This podcast was one of those connections.
Yeah.
Diggs and I were hanging out in the main hall talking. And one day we were like, this sounds like a podcast. Let's go make one.
And here we are.
Here we are.
And here we are. 56 episodes later. Diggs, my friend, always a pleasure to see you.
And you.
Here's how the show works if you're new to it. I have an iPad. His name is Frank. He's sitting right here. And Frank is going to dish up 5 random topics. We're going to talk about each topic for 5 minutes. You're going to hear a little jingle, do a little dance, move on to the next topic. That's it. Are you guys feeling good? You ready to go?
Simple enough. I'm excited.
Here we go. Episode 56. Of the 5x5, the Candy Factory 5x5 podcast.
We're getting old.
Starting to get a little creaky. Topic number 1, Starbucks.
Oh, boy.
Oh.
How do you feel about Starbucks?
I'm not a big coffee guy. We'll start there.
Okay.
Fair.
I'm a tea drinker if I do anything hot. Yeah, exactly. But I think I was caught up in the whole Starbucks movement like everybody else was at one point or another.
Do you remember the first time you went into a Starbucks?
First time, maybe not. First year or so. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Like when you kind of, like, you got it. Like, you went and you're like, okay.
Yeah, because, like I said, 25 years in restaurants, but then I did manage to have a few 9-to-5 corporate jobs, and one of those was in the architecture industry.
Okay.
Back in D.C. And I had this Ashete case full of nothing, like my little briefcase. Like, there's nothing in it.
I love
fully donned in Gap apparel. My Gap button-up, my Gap slacks, my shiny shoes. I think square shoes were still a thing.
Okay.
Square toe shoes. And, of course, I had to stop at Starbucks. I mean, you got to walk in like this. Right? You got to have the cup in this hand and the briefcase in this hand. What are you doing otherwise?
Right.
You're not. You might as well be a temp. You don't work here. So
That's how it started. Are you here for an appointment, sir?
Right.
Yeah, right. What can I have? Like an interview.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the first time you went to a Starbucks?
The
First kind of first time of your life.
I actually think I do remember. I think it was in Seattle when I was 8, because I grew up in New York, and like Starbucks was like anathema that you didn't, especially at least not in our neighborhood. It didn't exist. It wasn't around. Like
right.
You went to Mike's, the coffee shop, that was right across the street. Got your 75-cent coffee, kept walking. But when we went to Seattle for family reunion, the original Starbucks was on the list of places to go. It's right across from Pike Place Market, whatever, the big market.
Yeah, the big market.
So I distinctly remember going in there.
You went into the original Starbucks the first time you went into a Starbucks.
I'm fairly certain that was the first time ever.
Let's just go with that.
Yeah.
How convenient for this story.
Incredible.
Well,
I remember it like it was yesterday.
If only. Yeah. No. What's funny is I was just there. My mom and I just went back to Seattle last September.
Yeah.
And we walked by it, and the line was just like,
forget it.
Yeah, it was like also just still dealing with COVID. It's like no, we'll go to the market.
Totally. I was there like last week. Oh no, it was 2018.
Right.
I was there in 2018, and my buddy and I went down to Pike Place and all that, and and it was like, oh, there it is, and the line was around and I was just like, it's not worth that.
Nope.
It's not worth that. Like, why would you? You know what I mean? Like,
it's for the selfie. It's for the gram.
it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's
all about the gram.
Totally.
But I will say, when I first I actually was it actually hurts my heart to say it. I was a pretty loyal Starbucks person because when I came to Lancaster for college, and I was doing. I was working in the president's office over a summer when the previous president was onboarding in. He wanted some students to be around. Starbucks was the only early coffee place back in 2012. Like Mean Cup wasn't there yet. And rattle off the other ones. Prince Street was around, but it was difficult to park at.
Sure.
For a quick hit and run.
Right.
Copper Cup was a gleam in those people's eye. Like there was nothing else. So
where did you go? Which one did you go to?
I would go to the one that's like not there anymore, over on Columbia.
Oh, it's Stone Mill Plaza.
The Stone Mill Plaza one. If you don't know, just it was the best. But for me, it wasn't a drive-through. It was that the people there actually made it feel like a small coffee shop.
It did, totally. I lived in that neighborhood. Absolutely.
The staff was just top-notch. Like that was the reason I wanted to, other than I needed caffeine. But there was another option over on Fruitville Pike where you could just do the drive-through. But they were so clinical. They were cold. They're still kind of clinical and cold. I'm sorry. Y'all need to brighten up.
Here comes the hate mail.
I don't care. Like I've said it before. I've said it again.
I'm going to forward that right on to Diggs.
Please.
Mic drop.
It's interesting because I remember I was in New York, but I was in I think it was Westchester. Like I was up in Bedford, like that area.
Yeah.
And I think that was the first time I went to a Starbucks. But it was late. It was like it was like 99 probably. I lived in Nashville in the 90s, and Central Perk sort of got, you know what I mean? And those shows in the early 90s, mid 90s made coffee shops really that kind of coffee shop a thing.
That's
right?
true.
And so in Nashville there was one called Bongo Java, and it was a local coffee shop, and they were actually famous for the Nunbun. There was a
what?
We used to go there all the time. In fact, I rented a room from a flyer that was on the Bongo Java bulletin board once. I rented for a couple of months. But they had a cinnamon roll. Yeah. They would bake cinnamon rolls, and one came out and looked just like Mother Teresa.
No.
Listen to this. And they called it the Nunbun, and they whatever. I don't know.
They replicated it?
No.
They kept the wood?
They just had the one, they put like varnish or whatever on it to keep it and put it in this little thing. And I actually, before I left Nashville, I bought a travel mug from there. Or I got one as a gift, a travel mug, and it had the Nunbun, a picture of the Nunbun.
Like Elvis paraphernalia.
From Bongo Java.
Glass.
The Nunbun. No. I used that thing for years. I loved it.
We're going to get you one. I'm sure they must ship.
Oh, God.
But I can't wait. At some point in the last 15 years, the Nunbun was stolen from the premises. It's a whole thing.
Ugh, scandalous.
But unfortunately, the cup has run dry on topic number one. It's time to move on to topic number two. This episode's 5x5, which is the 80s.
I'm so stuck on Nunbun. Sorry. I'll get off it.
Mm-hmm. I got to look it up, and we'll post in the show
I'm going to have
notes.
to let you two carry the 80s.
Wow.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Big decade.
It is a big decade.
So I was a teenager in the 80s, right? So I was born in 1971. So I entered the 80s coming into middle school, right? So the 80s were like that's a big decade.
Mm-hmm.
When you come into the decade, a fifth grader, which in my school district was middle school, like you were done with the elementary, you were done with playtime and romper room and all that.
Sure.
You were like, it was like, all right, this is serious. And I graduated in 1989. So like, wow, right?
Yeah.
Like that, the 80s, right, were my time. But you're a little bit younger than me, so
Just behind you. So I remember the 80s because that was the first president I could vividly remember. So I was born in 78.
gotcha.
And so I was walking into the 80s, literally. And but I have a huge family. I have 3 brothers, but I have 9 adopted brothers total. And they're significantly older than me. And so I
Gotcha.
witnessed the 80s through their experience.
It's interesting how when you have older siblings,
Yeah,
like you're either a young 6 or an old 6.
exactly.
Depending on if you have a bunch of 10, 12, and 14-year-olds around or if you have a bunch of 3, 2, and 1s around.
Sure. Because I've got 80s references that people in my age group are like, how do you know? What? How do you know that?
Right.
I'm like, what? You don't remember? I don't know. Any random TV show.
And my partner, Ann Kirby, who is the founder of the Candy Factory, she's 78, and she treats me like an elder statesman when I make references to the 80s.
But it was your glory time.
It was absolutely my glory time. And the one thing I'll say about the 80s is it really was disposable. Like everything, like meaning there was a disposable culture around it, right? It's sort of like the 50s. It was sort of like that same, so coming into that time and sort of finding independence and things like that. The vibe, the Reaganomics and this idea of sort of like materialism and sort of wealth being sort of the goal, right? And that sort of thing. But this capitalism and this plasticity, we'll say, was just really prevalent. And when you're a kid, you don't know the better of it.
Sure.
Right. So there's a lot of things about the 80s that I look back on now and I'm like, oh, that makes sense now. But at the time, clueless about it.
Oblivious.
Like, so I didn't realize, especially because, speaking of presidents, and I'll mention it, the one thing about Ronald Reagan that is mind-blowing is how decisively he won both of his elections, but particularly the one in 1984, which would have been the first. I would have been 13. It was like the first election that I was really in the moment. Like, I can picture in my head sitting down watching television and not really having a side. The whole liberal conservative thing wasn't a narrative that was part of the country like the way it is now, right? You weren't looking at something and go, well, that's obviously liberal, that's obviously conservative. There were people who did that, but it wasn't as prevalent.
Right.
But I remember just sitting around waiting for Mondale to win another state. And I was like 11 o'clock, and I'm like, is this guy going to win any more states? He won Minnesota, his home state. That was it.
And were they counting on an abacus, or how were they? I did that for Ann. Sorry.
That was good.
Well, they had the Abacus 2000,
Sure,
the 3.4,
the upgrade.
Yeah, it was a total upgrade.
Right.
Now, this thing rocked. I mean, it was smoking. Everybody was running the Abacuses had their Walkman, their little circular head.
It was
wire.
right there, Diggs. It was right there.
It was good.
Yeah.
Playing their TDK tapes.
Oh God! Now you lost me.
I loved.
I know exactly.
He knows what I'm talking about.
I know TDK. I know TDK.
But no, it was a wild time because there was such a, because of the decisiveness of these elections. There really was sort of an overwhelming. It felt more together, right?
Sure.
Even though when I look back, of course, there were some really bad things that were going on.
Oh yeah, that's what I remember.
Really bad things going on. Well, in D.C.,
I was in D.C. It was the murder capital.
Yes,
bang bang.
I remember that. Yeah. That D.C. was just sort of, you sort of thought of it in the same way you thought of maybe New York City in the 70s.
Correct. Gangs of New York.
Yeah, there was just this sort of like, well, I'm not going to go there.
Our basketball team was the Washington Bullets. Least we forget.
Was that Marion Barry?
Oh yeah, we put them in twice.
When was the big cocaine thing? When did that go down?
Oh man, that had to be. So I remember all the Bart Simpson T-shirts that B set me up. because that was the famous quote. Like the woman in the room that set him up she was placed there.
Gotcha.
That had to be late 80s.
That's what I'm thinking is the 80s.
That was late 80s.
Do you know what we're talking about?
Vaguely.
The
DC mayor popped for cocaine.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yes.
and a sting operation.
Yes. I do know.
And then we voted him back.
Right,
I will say though, he was the best mayor of
Was he?
DC in my lifetime.
Wow.
He got people my age off the street. We got jobs. You know, not that I was on the street, but I mean, at 13 years old, I was able to go and get my first summer job, and no mayor prior to that was doing anything youth centric.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I wouldn't have been working.
Well, but it's just one of those things where it's like the art and the artist, right?
Yeah.
Can you separate the policy from the from the guy in the hotel room?
I was just going to ask, like, what was it like being, because, like, well, never mind.
So close.
Now, because
Yeah.
the ball's dropping and it's 1990. And we're moving on to
If the 90s comes up as the next topic,
then this turns into a VH1 show.
that's true.
Topic number 3 of this episode, 5x5. For Loko. For Loko.
And now I'm looking at you.
Yeah,
Dave,
that's
because
fair.
that's not my.
I don't even know what
generation.
this means. Like,
Oh, boy.
Seriously?
no, I have no idea.
Are you
You wanna-
aware? Are you aware?
I'm aware, but I wasn't.
Like
I didn't partake.
right now, you could tell me that this
wait.
is a cocktail or an automobile, and I would believe you either way. I have no idea.
Let's start
what
with your
Little bit of
explanation,
both.
then I can go into my lived experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
For Loko, from my memory, if it serves correct, I didn't have the luxury of going away to college. I had to drive to college and drive home every day. I didn't get housing. And I went to Morgan in Baltimore and drove back to D.C. And what I remember for Loko is a lot of ambulance pulling into campus dorms to take young women out and men after a night of drinking maybe 2 4 Locos.
That's about
It
right.
didn't take much.
No, it did
I mean,
not.
this thing was like liquid crack in a can.
Yeah.
Oh, this is okay. So now I'm starting to distill it down from an ocean.
Yes.
I've gotten to a drink,
Yeah.
and now I've gotten it into a purchased beverage.
Yes.
So this isn't like a garbage can where you're pouring.
But it was
No,
like
no.
high gravity or something like. I don't know what made it so potent.
It was high octane plus there was some energy component to it as well. So
Oh,
you,
that's right.
So you weren't getting the depressant of alcohol. It was like you were, but you were also then getting like amped up at the same time. So it's like if you,
So it's an alcoholic beverage,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like a Red Bull kind of thing, like a
yeah, it
like a
was
stimulant?
originally it was. So in my time in college, they actually took the Red Bull component out, and For Loko still exists. Actually,
It does.
Yeah, it's just not without the energy component. So it's not really. It doesn't really
So it's just
sell as well anymore.
They were dropping like flies.
It was ridiculous. Like honestly, it was like I didn't drink illegally in college, except whatever. Of course I did. So like I could hold my beverage, but it was like I needed one of those to pregame before I went out. Like normally I would have like a couple drinks before I
sure.
actually
Yeah.
left the
Drink a
dorm to
couple
go to the
beers or
frats.
whatever.
Yeah, just one, and you had to, and I had to drink it slow. Like I couldn't pound it, couldn't chug it.
I feel like I'm. There's a lot of FOMO going on here. for
No,
me.
no.
You
no.
missed nothing.
No, it was like there was a.
I want this.
I should.
You don't. It's like
No, but I'm-
Goldschlager.
No, I understand what
In
you're
a
saying.
can.
No, let me explain.
Okay.
I haven't had a drink in 7 years.
Right.
But I crammed a lot of alcohol into the 20 years that I drank. And in college, you know, I was not usually far from like a beer funnel or whatever. So this just sounds like a magic. This sounds like a magic carpet ride.
It was, and here's where. So I was an RA like sophomore year. I came to Lancaster to go to F&M.
Yeah.
But that's as far as I'm going to go in terms of naming names. But there was a room that in our dorm that we started just calling Club for Loko, and my philosophy to being an RA was I wasn't going to bust folks because honestly I'd rather know what you have and know who was in the room so that if somebody gets in trouble I can go, okay, there was this and this in the room. Let's figure out what we get a report. Oh, he was drunk on blah blah blah, whatever. It's like, okay, great. Then I can go in and go, no, this stuff is out.
I think the legal term is complicit.
Whoa.
You got it. I'm glad you made it out of that
Hold
scenario.
it. No. Because the thing is, it's better to no. Here's the reason why. It was better that we knew where they were.
Sure.
So that because the problem was we didn't want them going out into
Right.
Lancaster.
No, I totally get that.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, of course you're right, but But like it worked, and so the rule with the Club for Loko was eventually we said you can only do one. If you're going in this room, you can only have one, and they actually did a pretty good job.
Thank God,
because it was real easy to tell who did two, and then we just wouldn't let them out if we saw them. It was just like, no, you're going to your room. Like you're too drunk to fight with me.
it was like Long Island iced tea with no ice.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I just don't know how it made it into stores. It blew my mind.
But it's incredible because an old friend of mine who I went to college with, and we would drink, Night Train and Mad Dog and that kind of stuff.
I remember that.
We were talking the other day about ephedrine, about the White Crosses, and how we would just eat them like candy and drink vodka, and they would sell that shit in gas stations.
Walk me through ephedrine.
Yeah.
So it's speed. Right?
Oh,
so
like BC powder.
It's like the active ingredient in meth or whatever. It's like it's why you have to sign when you go buy stuff. But back in the day, they would sell, and I don't know the technicals because I don't cook meth, just for the record. So, you know what I mean? I may be off on that. Detail your Wikipedia. But the point is, there were these little pills, little White Cross pills, and they would sell them in gas stations as energy pills.
Okay.
Which they were. But they would sell them to truckers. They would market it to truckers. Like, because, that's not dangerous.
No.
So you'd go stop at a truck stop or whatever, and you'd go up to the gas station. There'd be these little, hey, energy or, whatever. Need to get there, through the night or whatever. So we would buy them for like, I don't know, $3.57 Magnums was one of the brands. And you would buy a whole, it's like buying ibuprofen. I mean, it'd be like 200 pills.
Wow. What?
For $10 or something like that. And you'd take like 2 or 3 of these things and drink some vodka or something, and it was just, your head would tingle. I mean, it was a fantastic thing. And we were just talking about how we would buy narcotics at the gas station. Of course, they're all outlawed now.
Humanity.
Now they just sell them as caffeine pills.
Yep.
Anyway, I don't even remember what the topic was. Oh, For Loko.
For Loko. It was a perfect segue, considered.
It was.
I'm just going right to topic number 4, which is Chicago.
Isn't this 3?
No, this is topic number 4.
4? We've already
This is the fastest 25 minutes of podcast.
I'm not keeping up. Chicago.
Yeah. Good place.
Chicago, my favorite city.
I lived there for 3 years.
No, I wish I could live there.
It was amazing.
Yeah,
Someday I'll live there.
I visited.
Yeah.
You been there a lot? Ish?
No.
A couple times?
I mean, I take the train. I took the train a lot growing up. And if we were going west out of New York, you almost always had to go through Chicago to change. And at least back in the 90s and early aughts, it was a nice long layover. So you did get a good chunk of time I can't speak. Good chunk of time to walk around, like get on the bus, go somewhere. But I've only ever really visited like overnight once to visit. This was in the higher ed days when I was visiting another consortium.
You got to spend some time in Chicago.
I
It's
know.
a great city.
Especially now there's like the quick hop out of Harrisburg.
Oh, the flight. Yeah.
Easiest. Yeah.
So easy.
Yeah.
So we just went for my 50th birthday. I was in Chicago for my 50th. It was great. We were there for like, I don't know, 3 nights, 4 days. And I had gone for business. I went once when I was a kid. My folks had some friends out there. And I went once as a kid to Wrigley and the Sears Tower and did all the kind of touristy stuff. And then it just wasn't on my mind. And I ended up, through business, starting about, I would say 14 years ago or so, I would get out there periodically. And then I actually had a business partner, little side hustle I did for about 3 years. And I was going out pretty regularly. And I really liked it, but I was always there for business. So we would find social time. We'd kind of mix it in. But this past trip was the first time it was just like, I didn't do any work. It was like one of the first trips I've done where my laptop barely ever came out of my bag. And I got to tell you, I remembered how much I loved it. It had been about 5 years since I'd been there, and I remembered how much I loved the city. But just going without the obligation of work.
It's a perfect city to coast in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was
no
so
plan,
cool.
no agenda.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Did you like living there?
It was my first living experience off of the East Coast. I had lived in New York twice and Atlanta, and then when I finally made it to Chicago and made it through the shock, the weather shock of it all. Shockingly, though, you get used to it.
Yeah.
You get used to it. And people go, oh, you don't get used to it. Well, you have to, because nothing closes. It's not like D.C. It's not like the South. School is open. Trains are running. Jobs are called. Like, get here. Figure it out. But other than that, it was a great time of my life to be in Chicago. I was kind of coming out of a personality shell if you will. And it was a great place for me to expand friendships and like really introduce diversity into my life. And Jameson. Jameson was thoroughly introduced to my life in Chicago.
That's awesome.
God, it was a great time.
Was there anything in particular that you like to do that's unique to Chicago? Like,
I love that Chicago has this very unknown underground city portion about it. Like there are these underground streets that are completely covered by other streets.
Oh,
so you'll have like Wacker, and then
Mm-hmm.
you have Lower Wacker. And it has changed since then, but in years gone by, there were like storefronts and restaurants under
Underneath.
these streets. If you watch any of the more recent Batman movies, they're all shot in Chicago to look like Gotham City. And so those like tunnel city views, that's all Chicago. I love that. I love finding a really shitty hole-in-the-wall bar underground for some reason.
that's cool.
And the hot dogs. I think they get praised very much for their pizza, but people don't talk enough about a good Chicago dog.
I've never had a Chicago dog. I've had the pizza.
They put a pickle slice on every dog. You ask for ketchup, you may get assassinated. They don't. They put a quarter slice of a pickle on every dog everywhere you go. And Garrett's popcorn. How could we?
Next time I'm getting a hot dog.
Oh my! Call me.
Next time, definitely gonna go and definitely gonna get a hot dog. We were out there. We this is not unique to Chicago, but there's only 2 of these in the United States. I'm going to talk about the ancient Greek baths.
Oh,
Yeah, in Chicago. So there's only
Where's
2:
the
New
other
York, New York, and Chicago.
I think the one in New York is in Brooklyn.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
how do I not know this?
But we were just looking for something cool to do on my birthday. It was like the day after, but and Ann found this ancient Greek. It was so imagine an old warehouse. It was like an old factory, an old warehouse kind of thing, redone, and so really super high ceilings, exposed brick, all that stuff. But like basically 8 swimming pools, indoor swimming pools.
Oh.
Inside it of various sizes, right? And of various, I don't even know how to say it because I don't know anything about this stuff, but like different levels of salt, different temperatures,
Yep.
all like purposeful, all intentional. Salt bath, like
Yeah.
the salt scrubs.
Are
And
you
I'm not a spa guy.
Are you supposed to like do them
I'm
in
the spa
a
guy.
You're a spa guy?
I'm the spa guy.
I'm not a spa guy. I'm getting there. I was
Okay.
in Mexico a couple of years ago. Maybe it was 18 years ago now. I don't know.
knows?
But I was in Mexico and I went to to a spa.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I'm sold.
You got to do Iceland
Okay.
and do the natural springs there.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
Insane.
I've heard of that.
Insane.
So they're hot.
85 degrees, and you go, and your breath just freezes midair. It's like 10 degrees outside.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what
and you
would
got
be-
like 4 hours of sunlight.
Oh my god, that's awesome. Yeah, that's gonna be a bucket list. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, we're leaving O'Hare, heading east, back to topic number 5.
Wheels up.
String cheese.
Ugh.
String cheese.
Con?
No,
I can't. No.
not doing it.
I mean, I did it like as a kid, but it was in the Lunchables. It was in whatever other like lunch things you would get. But I'm not a big cheese person to start with.
Whoa.
And sorry.
It's okay.
I do it on pizza. That's better.
Yeah.
New York pizza, not Chicago pizza. That's a pie. Anyway, but the string cheese, like for some reason I always just wanted to just bite it. I didn't want to do the like.
You don't have to peel it
That
apart.
seems silly to me too.
Okay.
What are we doing?
All right.
The
Let's get
string
straight to
peel?
it.
As long as we
Yeah.
can agree.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a rule that because it's string cheese you have to peel it.
String Twizzler is a different story, but string chease,
Oh, I don't know.
We'll get to that in a minute.
yeah, we'll circle
It's,
back.
it's sort of like some people eat the Oreos, they pop it off. And
Yep.
they, you don't have to do that.
Well, I don't lick it. I just whatever's on it. I just.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
You
I
don't,
do.
but so the string cheese, it's fine to just chomp on it.
You should have been in my elementary school. The amount of like not hate, but just like, what are you doing? like
Well,
like the other
You
kids.
just went right after
Yeah,
that
because I
thing.
was like, I don't have time for this. Like, I don't like this thing anyway. I'm hungry though, so I'm gonna eat it, but I'm not gonna do the slow way.
yeah, but
This
kids
is-
are like, they're like a whole thing.
Yeah.
They're like a whole, I don't know what even to say.
Yeah.
Kids.
I know.
They have their own culture. There's
I
just like
also-
this whole ecosystem.
I also made my Lunchable pizzas wrong, according to them. Like, because I would put the cheese that came with it.
Did you go to Martha Stewart's elementary school? Like,
No.
who were these evil kids judging you?
No, well, they weren't actually evil. It's just like the stupid little like kid things.
That's what I'm saying. They're just they're evil things.
a lot of
they're evil
pressure.
creatures.
It did stick. I mean, I did whatever. I liked it. I would. Sorry, what I did was I would put the pepperoni under the pizza. So I do like the tomato sauce, the pepperoni, and then the cheese on top.
The cheese on top of the pepperoni.
And
Why won't they just let you be great?
That's what. Thank you.
Absolutely. I've had pizza like that though. There's
Yeah.
places that do that.
Yeah.
You're ahead of your time.
Even in New York now. Yeah.
True.
You were ahead of your string cheese.
I don't know if it's because I'm gay or because of hospitality or a combination. But I grew up with a very adult palate. And string cheese just always seemed really silly and immature. I was like, there's no way. Maybe because it didn't work with a certain look or an aesthetic. I didn't like this motion. A cheese plate.
You were destined for
If you
hospitality.
put a charcuterie board in front of me at 9, 10, I'm in. I was sold.
Would you if string cheese was on the board?
This wouldn't happen at the Four Seasons. Flip it over. I'm out of here.
Maybe at Four Seasons Total Landscaping.
Sure.
But not the Four Seasons. So
Good callback. That was good.
I don't remember string cheese as a child. Of course, I grew up in a very small town in western Pennsylvania, like a coal town, where we didn't have things like fast food or movie theaters and things of this nature. So I don't remember string cheese, but I was introduced to string cheese, believe it or not, when I started my first diet. In 2004, I was a pretty big fella for most of my life.
Really?
Well, not as a high school kid, I came out, I was like 6 foot, 140 pounds. I was one of those skinny, scrawny, chest sunken in kids. Then I discovered beer.
Hello.
And the all-you-can-eat cafeteria at the university, where you could literally just study there and they keep the hamburger line open the whole afternoon. And I put on 80 pounds or something in college. Like I went from
I can't even see you.
from like a 28 waist to like a 40 waist. And then I was pretty heavy until I was in my early 30s. And I went on a diet. I was like, I mean, I didn't pay attention to any of it, right? Like I don't think I ate a piece of fruit, right? I was just eating just junk, just Taco Bell or whatever. Hamburgers, cheeseburgers, wings. And then I was about 30, 33, I had a couple kids. And I was like, I got to get this.
Yeah.
I got to get this figured out. So I went on the South Beach diet.
I was going to ask which diet.
South Beach diet. And, it's low carb. And I was like, I'll try it. I don't know. What do I have to lose? And string cheese, was part of the... I remember it being like part of the diet. Like it was a snack.
Yeah.
It was a recommended snack.
Okay.
It was like that and maybe like that laughing cow, those little round.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Love that.
It was like those kinds of little and the whole point of
portion control.
Yeah, it was about portion control. Is that you could take the string cheese and you could throw it in your bag and if you get hungry at 10, between breakfast and lunch, just eat that and it'll hold you over.
Right.
And I started eating it. And of course, the very first thing I did was I went, As a 33-year-old, I'm like
peeled
peeling
it slowly. Yes,
peeling the strings off the thing.
I have two things. One, did it work? Did the diet work?
Yes, the diet worked.
Okay. And two, I don't know that string cheese was around when you were younger. I feel like I remember the
When it came out?
announcement of string cheese.
Yeah.
It was around the yogurt for kids time because yogurt
Yes.
was always an adult thing. And then they started making Columbo yogurt days. They started making yogurt fun. And I feel like somewhere around there is when
Probably in the early
polio,
90s.
whatever it was,
Yeah.
string cheese.
Yeah, I feel like that the 80s, we talked about the 80s before, and I feel like that the 80s was the time, maybe the second half of the 80s, was the time where those kinds of interesting foods that didn't exist before were introduced to the general population.
True.
It was where middle America ended up with tacos,
Facts.
right? It's
Yeah.
because in the 70s, no tacos. And I remember my aunt being like, we're going to have tacos. And my brother and I being like, what the hell is she even talking about? Tacos.
Right, right.
And we show up and it's like, here's a shell and here's this. And it was like, oh, it's a new thing.
Wow.
So I'll bet you're right. I'll bet the string
I'm pretty
cheese
sure it was mid 80s.
kind of became a thing then. And I was already a teenager.
Exactly.
Doing my thing, eating my nutty bars, whatever, hanging out with grandma.
That was also not 5 minutes. Could not have been.
That was the fastest 25 minutes in podcasting.
Wow.
Ding.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
It is amazing. It's been such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Oh man, I had such a ball.
Thanks
I
for
would
doing it.
love to find out about the topic generator and how For Loko made its way in the mix. But
Oh, that was me.
alas, time is up. That was you.
It was
Okay.
me.
Yeah, we're not peeling the curtain back on that just yet. Oh, the secret sauce.
Thank you for having
Next
me.
thing you know, there'll be 6x6s spinning up and 3x3s.
That's true.
8x8s. All these copycats.
Right.
We'll tell you in the green.
Can't tell you about this. Hey, thanks everybody for checking out the show on whatever platform you're watching us on or listening to. Subscribe, like, do all the things that you do when you're on the internet. Pretend you're on the internet
Yeah.
and click the thing that you do to
To get
stay
the
in
thing.
touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We really really do appreciate you checking out the show. Don't forget to check out coworkinginlancaster.com. Look at all the great things the Candy Factory has to offer. You can schedule a tour. You can even see this media studio. We will peel back that curtain.
Yeah.
You can check out the media studio. And in the meantime, we're going to see you next time. I said time. I've been doing this.
That's okay.
I said time twice in the
That's
same
all good.
sentence.
It's okay.
Yeah. Own it.
Let me think of an alternate path out. Until then,
There we go.
we'll see you next time on 5. Bye.
The Candy Factory 5x5 podcast is produced at So Good Media Studio at the Candy Factory.
A co-working and social club located in downtown Lancaster, PA.
The show is hosted by Jason Mundock and Robert Diggs, with music by John Chin.
Yeah. He's a really cool guy. Find 5x5
at the Candy Factory website, coworkinginlancaster.com.